Okay, so here we have CCS's Inventions knife that he won. I realized that, just from looking at his channel and talking to him a few times, that he's a young feller, doesn't have a lot of tools, so I brought the knife back down through its second stage, which is all the rough shaping and grinding part of it, because I figured the heat treating process would be very difficult for him. So what I've got done here, I did all the stuff that would be, fairly difficult to do if you haven't done a knife before. I thin this out so that he can slide the piece on here. It'll slide over that. You have to narrow that up. This part has to be narrower than this part right here of the blade. So you just put your mic on there, which is what I've done, and it's 160 thou, and then this was about 140. So as long as you don't make your hole bigger than that, when you put it up against there, it'll finish it up nice. A piece of brass would be ideal, probably, if you're relatively inexperienced before you tackle any sort of hard metals. I also did the crude grinding just to get it down to that point where I can heat treat it, and then if he grinds it to dress it, he won't take out the temper. So see those little bits of color there, my friend? You do not want to do that after this is heat treated. If you put color into this by over grinding it and making it too hot, wherever you see a little heat mark, that's going to be a soft part of the blade. At least until you have sharpened it 1,000 times, and then it gets up in past that, then it'll be hard again. But see that little bit of color right there? That took the temper out. Now it didn't take the temper out in this case because this knife hasn't been heat treated yet. But once it's heat treated, which is what I'm getting ready to do now, if you take a grinder to it, I'm guessing you don't have a belt sander of any kind, and don't use a wide belt sander. They make a big mess out of your knife. It has to be a narrow belt sander or none at all. I don't have one. I'm going to be building one soon. I just got the motor ordered. Not ordered, but I did a favor for a guy, and he's bringing me a great little variable speed motor. I think it might be a little small, but I might be able to use the variable speed controller on a different motor. I have a good one horse motor. This is a half horse, so maybe I'll make like a little mini sander, and then someday we'll make an even bigger one. But anyway, what you want to get if you don't have such things is a little mini grinder. These small flap wheels or blender wheels, whatever you want to call them. To do that rough shaping, I used a 60. You don't want to use a 60 from here on out. You want to switch to a previously used 80 grit, or start with a brand new, say, 120. And have a friend with a wet rag, and real soaking wet rag, and as you're doing some sanding, that guy will keep this blade cool. So and wrap it in leather, a good leather glove before you clamp it and that sort of thing, because this is a very dangerous thing to be doing, and that's putting the final bits onto this with a grinder, because what'll happen is it'll get so sharp that if you run the grinder, if you grind it this direction, because this wheel will turn this way, this knife will get so sharp that it'll cut into this. And one of two things are going to happen. It's either going to snap the blade, or it's going to bite in, and it's going to go somewhere. It may go into you, so you want to be extremely careful. In fact, if I was you, I'd wait till your grandfather to get around to helping you putting the wood on there before you maybe even tackle the metal shaping part, because he'll likely have a little more common sense when it comes to grinders. But just remember, use common sense and be very, very careful. So other than that, it'll be up to you to finish polishing it and that sort of thing, and don't grind it. See the black bit at the back here, right here? You'll see a little notch there. That's to tell you where to stop sharpening and grinding. You want to leave this piece of meat right here. That's so you got something for your, I keep forgetting what the name of it is. There's many different names, but just a backer basically. It's just a dress up piece of metal, and use a soft metal, some copper, brass, bronze, something like that. It'll be easy to work. What you're going to do is you're going to drill tiny little holes until you get what you want, and then you're going to take a little bitty file, a little tiny square file, and you're going to file that out. And just keep trying to slide that piece over that tang there, so that once it fits there real nice, it'll dress it up real nice. You got to just be careful not to make the holes too big, because if you do, you will see them. You'll see them as you're looking down the knife once it's finished. Then what you're going to want to do is, again, this is something you would do now, so it's a little tricky because I'm going to heat treat it, and you don't want to put any more heat into this knife. But normally you would heat up the tang of this and you'd burn it into the wood. And but what you can do is maybe get a piece of steel that more or less looks like this, maybe even just forge a piece that sort of resembles it, and use it to burn the wood. Don't use the knife you're working on to do that. And basically it's the same as the other piece. Just keep shaping it and until it fits really nice. Don't worry about the outside of it, just until you get that wood fitting that metal perfect, man. Then blow out the burnt stuff out of the hole. Get yourself some good, 5-10 minute epoxy, some metal epoxy, the sort of liquidy stuff. Don't use JB Weld. Get a more liquid type of 2-part epoxy made for joining metal to other materials. And so if you're going to use wood or a piece of staghorn or something like that, put it together, clamp it somehow, and then afterwards sand that thing down until the knife looks great, and then polish the whole thing, and you'll have a fine looking knife. It's shaping up to be a beautiful knife. It's optional to sharpen this. It is tapered right here, but you don't have to sharpen it. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that you did. I'd leave maybe just a 1/16 of an inch of a flat spot on top, just even it out. And also, I wouldn't necessarily don't try not to grind out all these little dents and dings from the forging process, because that just proves to people that this is a hand forged knife, and it leaves just a touch of character, so that way you can show it off. Say, yeah, that thing was forged, man. That's not just ground out. That thing was forged out of a file. So, anyway, I'm going to give it just a quick buff here first. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to heat treat it now. So we'll do that right now. Okay, got a slightly carburizing flame. It was quenched in oil because if I do water and then temper it, likely this knife would be a little too hard. So with a file, very high carbon steel. So just done in oil is pretty good. Now we're just going to polish it off and should be good to go. I mean, these file knives they're always very brittle, very easy to break. So you don't ever want to drop one. But should hold an edge pretty good. If it was water hardened and then slightly tempered, in fact, I think even a file right from the factory, I don't believe that they're tempered. They're water hardened, I think, and just left like that. But that's what makes them so incredibly brittle. So I'll polish this up now and send it off to you. good to go. Beautiful little knife. Just check the size. It's pretty well an 8-inch blade. And overall, when it's finished, it'll be about probably 13 inches or so. Beautiful knife, very light, very thin. Got a nice look about it already. I think I might probably just sharpen it and spend the time on the handle. It could just be sharpened out the way it is. It's not a hollow grind, it's the opposite, which is personally I prefer. I'd rather this type of grind myself. It makes sharpening a little funny, but makes for an edge that's a little stronger because it's got a little more meat because it goes in like this. It's more like it's more like an old axe or something, right? But anyway, this is Monday afternoon, around noon. It's going in the mail today, so you'll probably get it by the end of the week. I'd love for you to do a little video and tell us what you think. So, congratulations again, CCSinventions.